The House will come to order and members will take their seats. We'd ask everyone to please silence any electronic devices. This afternoon's prayer will be offered by Representative Warren. If members would please, as well as any guests, would please stand for the prayer and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance thereafter. Representative Warren.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Heavenly Father, as we gather today in a most unconventional way, we steadfastly exercise our constitutional right and spiritual privilege to call upon you for guidance and assistance. Lord, a challenge looms before us, preying upon the physically most vulnerable among us and devastating our livelihoods, testing our fortitude. As we face this challenge, Lord, we call upon you to guide our decisions. We ask for your grace and unfailing compassion to have mercy upon those suffering, whether emotionally, mentally, or physically, especially those afflicted with the COVID-19 virus. Please protect our frontline healthcare providers and first responders, Lord. Shield them from harm as they serve those suffering. Enlighten our researchers around the world working diligently to find a treatment and to develop a vaccine to control and defeat this virus. Guide our elected officials at the federal level and those appointed to positions of authority, that they may make the right decisions and chart the correct course for our nation. We ask that you guide and protect our country, our counties, and municipal leaders, Lord. Help them deal effectively with the challenges before them. Please bless and protect all our residents. Help them cope with the disruptions in their lives and the situations that may be new or confusing to them. And finally, Lord, please be with us this day and always. Open our ears and our eyes that we might better hear your guidance and better see where you would have us to go. Bless our efforts, we pray, giving all thanks and glory to you, Almighty God. Amen.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Gentleman from Harnett, Representative Lewis, recognized for motion.
Mr. Speaker, the journal for April 29th has been examined and found to be correct. I move that it be approved as written.
Representative Lewis moves the journal for April 29th be approved. Those in favor will say aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. The journal is approved. Introductions of bills and resolutions. The clerk will read.
Representative Horn, House Bill 1048, CPS intake screening PED recommendations.
Judiciary favorable rules.
Representatives Horn and Fraley, House Bill 1049, PED DEQ organizational structure.
Environment and favorable rules.
Representatives Horn, Fraley, and Clemens, House Bill 1050, PED low performing school districts.
Education K-12 at favorable rules.
Representative Davis, House Joint Resolution 1051, honor Linda Johnson.
Rules. And members, on that bill honoring Representative Johnson, that bill is going to be, or that resolution we're going to take up once we get back to some semblance of normal order so that her family can be here. Again, members are welcome to co-sponsor that one. Clerk will continue.
Representatives Horn, Lucas, Fraley, and Clemens, House Bill 1052, PED report, student financial assistance.
Education universities at favorable appropriations at favorable rules.
Representative Horn and Lucas, House Bill 1053, PED military occupational licensure.
Judiciary at favorable rules. Chair would ask unanimous consent to extend the co-sponsorship deadline for House Bill 1043 until until midnight tonight. Any objection? Hearing none, so ordered. Calendar, House Bill 1043, the clerk will read.
Representatives Bell, Jackson, and Lewis, House Bill 1043, an act to make various changes to the law related to the COVID-19 public health crisis, the General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Members, we're going to do something on today's speeches. The chair is going to permit members to speak from the well of the House. The reason for that is that the cameras that are working are the one located directly in front of me, and then the one behind me. And so, if members are talking from their seats, we're not certain that that it'll be picked up. So, members are invited but not required to speak from the well of the House. would ask when it comes to operating the mics or anything to just allow the Sergeant at Arms to make those adjustments for you. The gentleman from Forsyth, Representative Lambeth, is recognized to speak to the bill. The gentleman, again, like all other members who wish to debate, is invited to address the body from the well of the House.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you, colleagues. What an interesting time to be in Raleigh, to do the work of the people of this great state. You have put together a package that's designed to help as many people as we possibly can help across this great state. From health care to food banks to education, our children who are disadvantaged and suffering. And we appreciate it. We appreciate the bipartisan, unanimous support that we have received through these work groups and for this package. I want to highlight a few things from the appropriations package that you've worked on day and night. I mean, there's been a tremendous amount of hours put in on the work of this group. The House package totals $1.710 billion. There were some principles we used in terms of recurring versus non-recurring, and these are all non-recurring funds allocated out from federal monies that we received to benefit the state. I will highlight some of the major areas, starting with school nutrition, $80 million. There are a variety of areas within education that touches on connectivity, devices for students and staff to continue the learning environment, digital curriculum, cybersecurity, around $73 million. I would also emphasize that this is phase one. The work of these work committees will continue as we continue to find the best ways and the most appropriate ways to allocate these funds. Student health, $35 million. The summer learning program, $70 million. Learning management platform expansion, $1.5 million. Digital, non-digital instruction, funds for exceptional children, residential schools, the LISS grants, community colleges, $25 million, providing funds to continue their operations. UNC as well, $48.7 million. Funds to help our private universities and colleges across this great state, $30 million. A really exciting component of this package is investment in our universities, our teaching and research universities, providing funds to find a vaccine for this dreaded virus. This will put North Carolina on the leading edge of finding a vaccine for this country and this great nation we live in. If I move on to the area of health, we have $25 million for testing, tracings, and trends, $25 million for public health, an additional $25 million for behavioral health, which is an issue that we're dealing with. Medicaid has a number of areas of funding, starting with $40 million added to the Medicaid program, $50 million for, we've heard the stories about PP&E. This enables North Carolina to invest in getting more of these products into our citizens and our providers. $19 million for food safety, shelter, and child care. We carved out for the food banks $6 million. Each of the food banks will receive funding. Supplemental payments for foster care, $2.2 million. Financial assistance for special assistance, sometimes referred to as SA, a tremendous amount of support for our nursing home, long-term care facilities, $25 million. $25 million for rural and underserved communities. If you live in a community with a rural hospital, you know those rural hospitals are suffering. We have a $75 million program to infuse capital into those rural hospitals. We do not need any of our rural hospitals to close in this state, and they are struggling. And we believe this will help keep their lights on and patients coming. More needs to be done, and we'll be looking at that in the next phase. Our free and charitable clinics, taking care of patients, $1.4 million. North Carolina Medical Assist, $1.5 million. A relief fund for our teaching hospitals, $25 million. And a relief fund for those hospitals that are not classified as rural or teaching, $25 million. An absolute must to keep our hospital systems going. $300 million for transportation, and there needs to be more work and more done in that area, but this is a start. $350 million in local government assistance. That will be a formula-based allocation to our counties and our municipalities. $30 million for buffer revenue losses for fee-supported state operations. Many of our state parks and other operations are suffering or closed, and this enables them to continue paying the bills during this period of time. State government operations, $70 million. State government operations, animal disposal, $10 million. And then a gold leaf program for our small businesses who are also suffering, $75 million, for an aggregate total of $1.7 billion. Significant, not enough. Phase 2 will come at some point in the future as we continue to work. I recommend this funding package for your approval, and again, appreciate your work and efforts gone into every dollar that we're spending, the debates, the discussions. Phase 1, as I mentioned, more to come. Thank you, Mr. Speaker and colleagues.
The gentleman from Lincoln, Representative Sane, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. And thank you to everyone watching. This is truly a historic moment for all of us. Historic in the sense that I believe that the members of this body, both Republican, Democrat, or whatever political bias you may have all worked together to formulate this response, our initial response to this crisis. As Chairman Lambeth indicated, there's more to come, and in this bill is not everything that we may want to address. We certainly realize that, and we know that we have lots more work to do. But I want to thank you, members, and I want to thank the Speaker for recognizing early on that we couldn't be caught flat-footed waiting to find out what the federal government was going to do for us, knowing that we had to have a much deeper understanding of how this would impact our communities, large, small, black, white, whatever. All North Carolinians have been impacted. And you all have stepped up when called upon. You've demonstrated why the folks in your community elect you because of your leadership skills and because of your thoughtfulness. So I want to thank you all and really just want to urge you to support the bill. Obviously, we know that you do. We've had great work in our committees. We've had honest discussions. We've had lots of working together when we had differences. And we've worked very hard to iron those out so that we could get a very good product that we have before us today. And lots of hours. As I've told folks at home, stuck in my little office downstairs in our home, much like you have been, I know the hours that you've put forward. We've talked on the phone at all times of the day and night. Again, both sides of the aisle that have expressed needs and concerns for the people in your districts. And that does not go unnoticed by the people that you represent, and for all North Carolinians who recognize the hard work that's been put into this. It's also been a little fun to laugh at ourselves, watching us on web conferences, not the way that we're used to meeting. It's something new for all of us. And I think I've been called the mute czar and other nice things on Twitter, just so that we could get our work done. And you all persisted, and we all learned it very quickly and been able to work together. So it's fun to laugh at ourselves even in times like these when we're doing very serious work, and we all know that. And also, before we begin our process on this bill today, I want to thank the staff. Our staff here at the General Assembly deserves a round of applause. As I've told everyone, we're all drinking through a fire hose, but nobody more than those folks. They have spent tireless hours up and down, finding out information, trying to process all the data that's come to us during all this time, and trying to help us make the right decisions. And so they have been just incredible and continue to be. And they know that our work's not done either. But again, everyone pitching in and doing their part, I just want to recognize everyone for the great work. It is much appreciated by all members. And again, don't forget to laugh at yourselves if you didn't see the coverage on WFMY that covered our committee yesterday. It's kind of comical the way they did a mashup, and I saw some of our comments, everybody included. But again, I do urge you to support the bill, Mr. Speaker. I thank you for your leadership. I thank all the members from both parties for working together to get this product. Thank you so much.
The lady from Davie, Representative Howard, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and I'll just remain here at my seat, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
I'm going to address the part one of the economic support. Our task force met numerous times, and I can't say how grateful we are to our folks from the staff, and also to the Division of Unemployment. Lockhart Taylor has worked 24/7, even talking to us on Easter Sunday, trying to process these claims. So the portion of the bill that I'm going to address is a combination of the tax relief provisions in conjunction with some of the changes to the unemployment benefits. The tax relief provisions, DOR, through their current statutory authority, has extended the due date of individual income tax returns and corporate income and franchise tax returns until July 15th, from April 15th to July 15th. And this bill waives the interest on those payments until July 15th. It also extends certain tax-related April 15 deadlines until, again, July 15. And it ensures that the state and federal government tax laws continue to work in concert. The unemployment portion of the bill, it codifies the flexibility in administering the UI laws provided by Congress and adopted by Executive Order number 118. It allows a person to qualify for benefits if the reason for that separation is one of the following: the virus-related reasons. The employer temporarily ceases operation, the employer reduces hours, individual has the virus, and the individual is quarantined. Other temporary changes include that we have now allow the attached claims process, which was critical so we could move the claims along much, much faster. It waives the waiting week, and also there's non-charging of the employer's account for the claims. It provides employers a tax credit against the state unemployment insurance tax. It gives the employers a tax credit equal to the amount of their first quarter of SUTA tax contribution, allowing the employer to retain that revenue during this very difficult time. It will simply reduce the reduction in the trust fund by $200 million, but at the same time, we gain $100 million in interest, so it's a net of $100 million. The trust fund currently, as of April 21, sits at $3.7 billion. Mr. Speaker, that concludes my remarks. I'll be glad to address any questions and ask for your support.
The gentleman from Alamance, Representative Ross. Gentleman on the floor. Okay, is recognized. There you go. Is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members, and I also want to reiterate my thanks to staff for the hard work that they have done through this entire pandemic period that we've been through, working day and night, and also on weekends and holidays. And I just can't think of another group of individuals that have worked any harder than the staff here at the General Assembly. And I also want to thank the Speaker and his staff for the assistance that they've given us in this portion of the bill. I'm going to just briefly talk about section, I think it's 1C, it's a small business loan assistance, or better known as a bridge loan program that we're offering or going to do through Golden Leaf. Golden Leaf first did this back in at the end of March with a $15 million sum of money. And just to give you an idea of the need that's out there, it was all taken up within 48 hours, and applications continued to pour in, and applications now, dollar amounts exceed well over $100 million. The reason for that, as you all know, and I've heard every day, first thing in the morning and sometimes even in the middle of the night, I would hear from small businesses that were telling me that they needed some form of a bridge to get from the shutdown period that we were in over into the period where we reopen and they're able to get their businesses back up and running, hence the term bridge loan. These loans will operate very simple. They're set up to where for the first 6 months the interest rate is going to be will be up to 4%. It doesn't necessarily mean it will be 4%, but up to 4%. Then after 6 months, then the loan repayment period begins, and that runs up to 66 months. At that point in time, principal and interest is paid back. The businesses have to certify in writing that the funds that they receive from this program will go towards the operation of the business and maintaining the employees in the business. The maximum loan amount is $50,000. The average loan, based on past experience, is around $30,000 to $35,000. So not everybody goes in and gets a $50,000 loan. Typically, most of them, like I said, average $30,000 to $35,000. Program, as I mentioned, will run 66 months. That's when it ends, and that's when all proceeds at that point in time would be due back. It's a great program. The amount of money that we're going into this program this time will be $75 million. Again, we already know that amount of money is probably not enough because just based on applications that they've had prior to this, it far exceeds that amount of money. But this is a great step in the right direction and a great way for us to be able to help our small businesses all over North Carolina, especially in our rural areas. And I'm very, very pleased with the way this has all worked out. We were able to get the amounts adjusted upward to the 75, and we're excited about rolling this out. Thank you.
The gentleman from Columbus, Representative Jones, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Thank you, members. And I just want to echo my fellow members before me. Mr. Speaker, thank you for having the insight of putting these working groups together. It was a privilege to work on them in a bipartisan way, working with Representative Ross and Representative Ray. Appreciate all the work that you've put into this with what we've done. As one of the very small business owners in this chamber, this affected me greatly. But I'm glad that we've got to be a part of streamlining and helping this state and doing the things that need to be done. As of about 11 hours ago, we have about 900,000 folks that have filed for unemployment in North Carolina. Coming from one, if not the poorest district in the state, I can tell you that my phone has rang constantly, like I'm sure yours has. Folks are looking for answers. Folks are looking for relief. And I think what we have here in this bill is a good start. As you heard, I got to work with Representative Ray and Representative Ross on the loan bridge. This is a good start to help our small businesses get back in action. So I'm highly encouraging each of you to support this bill. And I too want to thank staff, thank everyone, thank each member for working in the way that you've had in this unprecedented time that we're faced. And Representative saying, you're right, we could laugh at each other. You know, they say the camera adds 10 pounds. I'm pretty sure we had about 6 cameras on me each time. So you're right, we can laugh at ourselves. So members, thank you for all your hard work, for what you've done, and I highly hope that you will support the passage of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Cumberland, Representative Soka, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I think most people in here know that I spent a large portion of my life in the military in service of this country. One thing I noticed in military service is that crisis brings out the best in people. In the civilian world, we've seen that in the last several years with Hurricanes Matthew, Florence, the forest fires in western part of the state. We've seen the best in people, be it first responders, being neighbors, helping neighbors. We have seen the best in people in North Carolina. I think that this current crisis has brought out some of the best in the legislature, in the staff. This has been a transparent process. It's been completely bipartisan. We started early, as other speakers have mentioned. I think that this bill is really good for the state. We have done the best that we can with those tools that we have and the knowledge that we have at the current time. I'd ask you to vote for this bill because I really think it is the best bill that we have at this time that serves the people of the state. And I, like everyone else in the state, yearn for a return to normal economic times, and I think that this bill will help us get there. Thank you.
The gentleman from Union, Representative Horn, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ladies and gentlemen. I will present the K-12 portion of House Bill 1043, and my colleague, Representative Fraley, will speak to the higher ed portion. But before I do, I want to begin by giving a special thanks to and appreciation to our co-chair, Representative Ashton Clemens, without whose knowledge, experience, and insights this bill would not have been developed. I also want to give a shout out to all the other folks on both sides of the aisle, on our committee, not on our committee, teachers, principals, superintendents across this state that have reached out to us to share their concerns, share their ideas, and be involved in how we have developed what I think we can all be proud of is a terrific response to a terrible crisis. terrible crisis. 1,600,000 of our students have been out of school since early March. The direct impact of the loss of that instructional time is disastrous to those kids and to us, our future. This bill focuses on the immediate needs of our students. The immediate needs of our students. It's part of a process that will be ongoing. The process of developing this bill has been open, inclusive, and very collaborative. And I believe we can all take great pride in it. House Bill 1043 includes waivers for testing, school report cards, the identification of low-performing schools, selection of schools for inclusion in an innovative school district. We've also waived the REAP to achieve retention determinations, the summer reading camps, and all the associated requirements that were to have gone into effect this summer. We're playing a game of cards with the cards face down. We have delayed the K-3 class size reduction in acknowledgement of those cards face down. We've modified the school calendar so as far as attendance requirements, and we've moved the start date up 1 week to August 17th. But we've kept we've kept the end date at June 11th. Next school year will consist of 190 days of instruction. 185 traditional days will include 5 remote instruction days in accordance with a remote instruction plan. And then we've added an additional 5 instructional days for separate and distinct full instruction. We've also included provisions for certain budget flexibility and dealt with the licensing and ed prep issues resulting from the closure of on-site teaching and learning. We have included money for school nutrition, connectivity, student health, cybersecurity, our underserved EC kids, remote learning portals, I already mentioned exceptional schools, residential schools, and the Ellis grants. That concludes my report on our K-12 portion of House Bill 1043. I'm going to now yield, with your permission, Mr. Speaker, to Representative Fraley to cover higher education.
The gentleman from Iredell, Representative Fraley, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Like the other presenters today, I would first like to express my appreciation to all our committee members and staff for their involvement and support in this work. I believe we had a truly bipartisan effort and result. The higher education part of this policy bill focuses only on 4 areas. First, coordinating with DPI, the State Board, North Carolina Education Assistance Authority, and others on how to deal with the many waivers and missed tests our high school seniors had and how to accommodate this in the higher education admissions process. Secondly, waivers concerning apprenticeship requirements in the community colleges, waiver of interest on past due UNC student debt between March 13th and September 15th, and extension of a few report dates for the UNC system. I thank you for your interest and ask for your support.
The gentleman from Pitt, Representative Jones, Representative Perrin Jones, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This is an interesting time. This is the first time I've ever addressed this body, and I appreciate the opportunity to do so. And I'd just like to say that it's really nice to see everybody here. It's nice to see everybody. It's been a while. Mourning the loss of consensus politics has become a near daily ritual. Substantial differences exist between parties on how we address pressing problems at all levels of government. Acrimonious commentary is constantly catapulted through the airwaves towards the other side, the opposition, those Republicans, those Democrats, who eventually simply become the enemy. Even consuming the news, the channels you select and the websites you visit can become a means to fuel stubbornness, to justify formulating excuses for avoiding engagement with our colleagues and neighbors who hold different convictions. In normal times, this body pays attention to all sides. Negotiation can only begin after listening. In dealing with this coronavirus crisis, this body has paid attention to all sides. All human life has value, and we can only defend it if we work together. I expect over the coming days that North Carolinians will prove the nattering nabobs of negativism wrong. Our fellow citizens will demonstrate their resourcefulness, resolve, and ethic of teamwork in overcoming this crisis. The North Carolina General Assembly has done well to follow their fine example. The North Carolina General Assembly will draft and pass legislation addressing a public health emergency that has set off extraordinary economic, social, and administrative consequences. We will take into consideration how best to aggregate data and align procedures towards safeguarding public health, reopening the economy, and recovering a sense of normalcy. We will act swiftly, understanding that the profound disruption prompted by this coronavirus outbreak has affected everyone, but not in the same ways and measures. Some communities will suffer worse health outcomes than others. The beautician, the dental hygienist, and the retail clerk, all in so-called non-essential occupations, have been affected more significantly than those able to work from home. Make no mistake, all work that is legal, ethical, and moral is essential. We will pool our collective expertise, our focus, our commitment to our constituents, our compassion, and most importantly, our good faith, and apply it towards overcoming this common problem. We will not hesitate, flag, or falter as we strive towards restoring wellness, work, and dignity for all our citizens who have made so many sacrifices to assist us in limiting the impacts of this virus on our state. We owe North Carolinians nothing less. I'm proud of this bill. We should all be proud of this bill. It is proof that the North Carolina General Assembly is an institution capable of effective governance. It is a triumph of each legislator who has subordinated their personal or tribal interests towards the speedy elevation of the common good. Most of all, it promises to be sound policy, the sort of good work out of Raleigh that North Carolinians expect from their leaders when big problems require a mix of aggressive, collaborative, and compassionate responses. I support this bill. I sincerely hope it passes, and I am grateful to all who have offered input and eased concerns about its provisions. May our Lord bless us, and may He protect our great state and people. Thank you.
The gentleman from Wake, Representative Jackson, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see a lot of people wearing masks, and I appreciate that, but you also got to keep your hands clean when you're touching these podiums. I want to thank all the members and legislative staff that have put in so much hard work in this bill. I will be the first to tell you that when the Speaker called me and asked me if I was willing to be a co-chair of one of the working groups, I told him that wasn't necessary. He saw fit to still make me a co-chair, and I have very much enjoyed the experience of working with Representative Bell and Representative Lewis and their staffs on crafting our part of this bill. Members, I believe that North Carolina is doing the right thing in battling this virus. Our stay-at-home order is working. Our public health situation is much better than those in many other states. We are putting ourselves in position to open back up and get North Carolina back to work for the long term. And that long term is the key. It doesn't do us any good to reopen North Carolina prematurely. The research is clear. There is more economic damage when you open too fast and have to shut right back down again. Having said that, I know that there's a lot of disruption and damage to our small businesses, to our schools, to our students, and to our health care infrastructure. And that is why we've all come together to pass this bill today. I'm not going to go through the bill's details as others have covered before me so very well. Instead, I will just say that the priorities of my caucus are to help small business, to help workers who have lost their jobs, their paychecks, and their health insurance, and to build our health care infrastructure, whether that is more PPE, testing and tracing, stronger hospitals and provider systems, and closing the health care coverage gap. Today's bill addresses many of those priorities, although there is much more work to do. I look forward to that work in the weeks and months ahead. Before I conclude, I have to point out the proposal put forth by Governor Cooper and the proposal put forth by every member of this House is, in my opinion, far better than the Senate proposal that I was reviewing late last night. Even looked at in the most favorable light, the Senate's plan falls short. That bothers me. I know I won't probably be part of the conference committee, but I know many of you will. And what bothers me even more is the number of areas the Senate chose not to put any money in. They simply reserve it, which if you're a struggling town or a public school really means nothing. We need to act now. The relief is needed now, not 6 months in the future. So I would encourage all of my House colleagues to stand strong, support the Speaker and our House staff as they negotiate with the Senate on the final product. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The gentleman from Wayne, Representative Bell, is recognized to speak to the bill, unless the gentleman waives his time. The gentleman from Harnett, Representative Lewis, recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I want to begin by thanking my co-chairs, Majority Leader Bell and Minority Leader Jackson, and all of our staff, plus those of members of the central staff who worked tirelessly to get this bill before you today. By coming together in a bipartisan fashion, we were able to provide regulatory and financial relief to the citizens and the businesses in our state. This bill, in practical form, delays several fees from the state, ranging from driver's licenses to building permits. We had a very robust stakeholder process, and the chairs are confident that we have put before you a bill that is a true relief package that will help the people of our great state. Since I am batting cleanup on the presentation of this bill, I'd like to also thank the Speaker for the faith and the trust that he has placed in us in asking us to come together and to craft a bill of this magnitude. I do not know of another time in our service in this House, if this is your first term or your 10th term, where we have done so much remotely. We have done it via conference calls, but still we have maintained our commitment to transparency, to including the public, to reaching out and truly taking into account the stakeholders in crafting this bill. Members of the House, this bill before you truly provides consensus solutions in nearly every policy area of our state. That in itself is a remarkable accomplishment. Due to the hard work of each of the working groups, I believe that we are well on our way to delivering a comprehensive response package that addresses the critical needs that face you, me, and our neighbors in this very trying time. I'll also say that I'm so proud of the work we've done to prepare for the to prepare to respond to the economic challenges that our families and businesses are experiencing. I am confident that the work that we have done in this bipartisan, open way will not only be a major step forward towards providing relief, but I think a model for how this House will conduct its business going forward. Mr. Speaker, thank you for the chance to have worked on this important project. Ladies and gentlemen of the House, thank you for your time and your commitment to the citizens of this state, and I do urge your support of this bill. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The lady from Randolph, Representative Hurley, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and ladies and gentlemen of the House, and those who are watching, streaming with us today. We're welcome to the House, your House. This is a really wonderful bill, and it would be more wonderful if it just didn't have one section in it, and that's section 5.4.7A and B. And I'm not on the committee that's had this yesterday, and I wanted to speak to it today. I know that many of you, just as I, have had many emails, letters, calls about the ABC stores remaining open during this time. This is a very serious time in our history. And I was told that the reason that this happened is because they were afraid that the beds would be taken up in the hospitals and there would be no room for the COVID ID patients. And that could be possibly true because we do have a terrible situation with addiction, many addictions. But anyway, with the increase of the domestic violence and increase of the child abuse because of this and the increased use of the alcohol, it's really making money. But to me, this bill would be so much better without this, and I understand that probably it cannot be removed. But if it could be removed, I think it would be a 100% better bill. I appreciate your listening. Thank you.
And members of the chair advise that the chair did not intend to take up any amendments. Further discussion, further debate on the amendment, on the bill. If not, and members, remember this is going to be a different process when we open the vote, and Chair will read additional language what to do. But seeing no further debate, the question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1043 on its second reading. Those in favor will vote aye. Those opposed will vote no. The clerk will open the vote. Members, the chair would remind the body that we are in a vote. The chair would also remind the body that once members have voted, they are free to leave the chamber to avoid the presence of too many folks at one time. And in just in a few moments, we've had a quorum that's voted. In a few moments, the chair is going to allow the majority leader and the minority leader, if they believe they're ready, to state their proxy votes. And we may not have to wait the full 40 minutes, but we're going to do that only with the consent of both party leaders.
Mr. Speaker.
For what purpose does the gentleman from Gaston, the limited purpose for the gentleman from Gaston, Representative Baumgartner, rise?
Inquiry of the chair about the schedule going forward.
Gentleman's recognized. The schedule at this point, this is the only vote to occur during this particular session. We also will be checking with the Senate. The number of the appropriations chairs are already having some conversations to determine what other action may be done today versus tomorrow. So I would ask members not to leave the legislative, not to leave Raleigh until we can advise folks more fully about the remainder of the day.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. So it's all yet to be determined then.
That is a certainty. Representative Jackson, is the gentleman ready to announce his proxy votes? We're still compiling those. Ready? We're still working? Okay. Members, the House will come to order. Members, again, there's voting still occurring. I know that the minority leader is on a Zoom call trying to hear folks and how they want to vote. Would ask members to please take conversations outside to maintain decorum on the floor. Again, I recognize this is a new way of voting in the history of this House, but members to do that would be most appreciative. Members, once again, we ask folks to take conversations outside. I know Representative Jackson is attempting to ascertain the votes of the members of his caucus. I believe Representative Bell is attempting to do the same. Again, there are no other recorded votes that are going to happen here for the next little bit. So members are free to socialize elsewhere as well. Chair would call Representative Humphrey, Representative McNeely to please come to the House floor. Any members who have not yet voted, any members who are in the legislative complex and have not yet voted are invited and encouraged to do so at this time. Representative Jackson, the chair is going to recognize the gentleman, to announce votes from members of his caucus. The House will come to order.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The following members have officially designated me to act accordingly and pursuant to House Rule 12I. I have directly communicated with them during the voting process. The following members all vote aye. Representative Adcock, Representative Ager, Representative Alexander, Representative Autry, Representative Beasley, Representative Brockman, Representative Butler, Representative Carney, Representative Cunningham, Representative Everett, Representative Farmer Butterfield, Representative Fisher, Representative Galliard, Representative Garrison, Representative Gill, Representative Charles Graham, Representative Harrison, Representative Ensko, Representative Lucas, Representative Martin, Representative Richardson, Representative Brian Turner, and Representative Willingham. Mr. Speaker, I have no votes to record.
The Majority Leader is recognized to announce the votes for any members of the Majority Party.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The following members officially designated me to act accordingly and pursuant to House Rule 12I. I directly communicated with them during the voting process. Representative David Rogers, aye. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Chair has been informed the minority leader has consented to closing the vote prior to the 40-minute mark. I believe one member on the floor still has yet to record. It appears that member has now recorded. Does the majority leader consent on behalf of the majority party that the vote be closed here at the 20-minute mark? With the consent of the majority leader and the minority leader, and noting that two members had an excused absence, the clerk will lock the machine and record the vote. A vote of 160. Actually, the chair would like to vote aye to record the chair as an aye. With this vote of 117 in the affirmative and 1 in the negative, House Bill 1043 passes its second reading and will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question for the House, passage of House Bill 1043 on its third reading. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1043, having passed its third reading, will be sent to the Senate by a special messenger. Members, the House will come to order. The chair will offer explanation of next steps that'll be beneficial for members as well as for the public at home. This is the order and the way this will happen. The appropriations chairs are going to have the duty of negotiating with the appropriations chairs of the Senate where our differences lie in the two present bills. Because we have not taken a bill where we have not concurred, there's not a conference committee process. But the manner in which the bills will be passed is once an agreement is reached as to the items in controversy, that a PCS will be done to the Senate bill we are in possession of, and the Senate will do a PCS to the House bill they're in possession of, and some of the provisions will be in the Senate bill, some of the provisions will be in the House bill. And then the two bodies will simply pass those, and then the other chamber would then concur with them. So that'll be the order of business, so we don't have to get into a matter where we actually, for example, were to take this Senate bill, change it, send it back, they vote not to concur, they have to send the House bill, change it, send it back, vote not to concur, then appoint conference. This will take a couple of days off of the process. So that'll be the order of business. So any members who have things that were not included in the bills that they think should be there or were included that they would prefer not be in there, you're encouraged to speak to the appropriations chairs who are going to be tasked with working through this to express those concerns to them, either directly, email, whatever form members would like, as they begin those processes, which are going to actually start as soon as this afternoon. Schedule-wise and time-wise, we are going to try. We're going to try. Again, this is a $1.7 billion package. We are going to try to work out the differences between the absolutely perfect plan of the House with the not so perfect plan of the Senate, to work those two things out together to come up with a compromise. Once we do those, once we come up with that, then we'll be able to put those two things into legislation. So there have been some conversations, I know, among the appropriations chairs to try to work that out. So again, those who want to get some information, you know, I see Representative Sain on the floor. I see Representative Faircloth. I see Representative Arp. Who else is here? It's an appropriations chair. Well, there's three of them on the floor right now, so you can get a hold of them right there. Oh, and Representative Dobson trying to hide off to the side over here. So certainly talk to them. I would do that sooner rather than later. So the plan is, so if we can reach an agreement this afternoon, we will try to have we will pass those bills this evening. I won't know where we stand on that probably for a couple of hours. Would ask for the body's indulgence. The chair was reminded that there is an appointments bill that we wanted to try to get through today that's ready to go. These are appointments that are vacant due to resignations of board members, and so it needs to go ahead and pass the House today to go over to the Senate. So we may momentarily simply pull that from the Rules Committee. There has to be, I believe, a change to a date, an effective date on one of them, but we may pull that and add that here momentarily. So the House will be at ease momentarily while we work through that. But again, those who have a drive outside of Raleigh, I would not leave Raleigh at this point because the hope is we'll have a vote this evening on an agreed upon package. Chair will be glad to answer any questions about that if anyone has those they would like to ask. All right. For what purpose, gentleman from Rowan, Representative Warren, rise.
Mr. Speaker, I was wondering if it was not, you seem very optimistic that there will be a compromise this afternoon. In the event that it does take longer, do you anticipate we will need to be here tomorrow?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah. If we don't resolve it today, the chair would anticipate we would do this tomorrow. I do not want to require members to be back next week. The goal is to get us out here either today or tomorrow. So that's where things stand. The House will come back to order. Mr. Clerk, Chair directs that House Bill 1041, entitled the Appointments Bill 2020, be withdrawn from Committee on Rules and placed on today's calendar for immediate consideration. The clerk will read.
Representative Lewis, House Bill 1041, an act to appoint persons to various public offices upon the recommendation of the Speaker of the House of Representatives and the President pro tempore of the Senate, the General Assembly of North Carolina, enacts.
And members, before Representative Lewis speaks, the chair is of the opinion this bill may be passed by simply a voice vote. We will not need a recorded vote. However, we are going to reconfirm that just to make certain with in-house legislative counsel. So while that's being done, the gentleman from Harnett, Representative Lewis, is recognized to speak to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker and members, House Bill 1041 is a pretty boilerplate bill. This is appointing various individuals to an assortment of boards. I can state as chair of the Rules Committee that all of these people have been found to be in good standing. They have completed the appropriate documentation, and short of reading all their names, I would just urge you to vote yes and to fill these vacancies. Again, these are appointments to replace folks who have resigned or passed away or for whatever reason are not able to complete their terms on various boards throughout the state. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
In the opinion of the chair, there is a quorum present in the rooms. Anyone question a quorum at this time? Seeing not, question for the House is the passage of House Bill 1041 on second reading. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1041, having passed second reading, will be read a third time.
The General Assembly of North Carolina enacts.
Question for the House. Passage of House Bill 1041 on its third reading. Those in favor will say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. The ayes have it. House Bill 1041, having passed third reading, order sent to the Senate by a special message. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special guest who's joined. Please join me in extending the courtesies of the floor to one of our former members who is now a member of the U.S. Congress, Congressman Greg Murphy. Dr. Murphy, thanks for being with us, sir. I knew you'd like Raleigh better than Washington. Members, we have concluded the business at the current time. The chair is about to put the House into recess until 4 p.m. to see where we are as far as the negotiations at this time. So about to go into recess until 4. Do we have any notices or announcements prior to that time? Gentleman from Wake, Representative Jackson, recognized for an announcement.
Mr. Speaker, House Democrats, we will caucus later this afternoon per the rules and the Speaker's notices. All caucus meetings will be done by a virtual meeting, so I'll send you a link at the time and give you a notice once we have more information.
And members, members should not, this is important, members should not be concerned about being back here right at 4 o'clock. Before we would take any action, it would require that a PCS be drafted to a bill that is in committee, so there would be no votes or anything at 4 o'clock, but the purpose of the 4 o'clock is to be able to advise the body and the public of where we stand, and if we have to make any administrative procedural matters at that time, we will, but otherwise there would be no business to be taken up at that time. So members should not concern themselves with having to come back to the chamber then. For what purpose does the gentleman from Duplin, Representative Dixon, rise?
Moment of privilege.
The gentleman has the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Many times during this crisis, we've heard folks use the word hero relative to a lot of people that is dealing with this. I'm not going to use the word hero in my brief remarks, but I am going to remind us of those critical folks who are involved in our food chain supply, particularly those who work in the processing plants that are processing meat products for our consumption. I guess in the truest sense of the word, they are heroes all of the time because they help produce the food and fiber that helps us remain a free nation, and we must be able to continue to feed ourselves. And so I just put that plug in for those who are involved in food processing. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Representative Dixon. Any further notices or announcements? If not, subject to the standard stipulation. Chair did just see. For what purpose of the lady from Wake, Representative Holly, rise?
Yes, Mr. Speaker. We're a little unclear of your directions again. So 4 o'clock, but we don't have to come at 4 o'clock, or please.
No, 4 o'clock will be for the purpose if the chair needs to announce anything about referrals of bills or anything. There will be no votes at 4 o'clock. And if there's any votes, I'll make sure we're talking with, if anything gets added to the calendar in a time, we'll be letting the minority leader and the majority leader know. It just, right now, there's just negotiations. There's no agreement reached, so till we have an agreement, nothing to vote on. Seeing no further notices and announcements, the House is going to stand in recess subject to the standard stipulations until 4 p.m.